Welcome back to another LP Gallery tutorial. Today we are going to be creating Smokey Text. Now, a lot of users, when they want to create Smokey Text, they'll just go online, find a nice picture of smoke, and throw it into the background of the text. Now, you can do that, but it doesn't really look like Smokey Text. It looks like text with a picture of smoke in the background. The smoke should really be forming the letters, and when you put a picture of smoke in the background, it just looks like a background, kind of like this. So here we have smoky picture in the back of text, and that's exactly what it looks like. The smoke should be wrapping around the letters. The smoke should be forming the letters. Now, when you throw a picture in there, it's just in the background. You need to have the smoke forming the letters. So we want something a little more like this. So if we look at that, we have this nice smoky filaments, and they're flowing, and you can see that they're actually forming the letters. So if you look at every letter, you can see that it has its own little smoky filament that's forming it. So that looks a little more natural, and that's what we're going for. Now, we even added a little bit of fire, which is an option. You may not want the fire, but we'll show you how to add a little bit of fire to the smoke. Okay, so again, we want our smoky text to really look like smoky text, and we want the smoke to define the shape of the letters. So that is our goal today. So let's get started. Now, one of the great things we're going to show you about creating this nice smoky font is that it doesn't matter really what font you use. Just about any font in your system will work. You don't need to go online, try to find a font that kind of looks like a smoky font where the text is kind of bending and twisting. We can actually do that right in PowerPoint. So just about any font in your system will work. Now you'll notice we have two fonts here. We have more of a regular font. Okay, so this one here is Berlin Sans, and we have a script font called PressScript. So either one of these is just fine. Okay, script fonts work really well for this effect, but I'm going to be using this one here just to show you that just about any font can be used. Now you'll notice that these fonts have a very thick outline, so it's important that the text has a black outline. Now the fill color itself is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what color you want to make it, it's going to be replaced. So I'm going to just stick to gray, but again, it doesn't matter what color you use. Now I'm going to click on this Berlin Sans. I'm going to go to my text options. I'm going to scroll down. Now you notice that's a 6-point thick outline. Okay. Now I like to have a thicker outline on the fonts because I think it works best for our effect, but you don't want to make the line so thick that you lose the openings in the letters. Okay. You still have to be able to read those openings. Now, if I click on this one here, the PressScript, you'll see that's a 4-point. Okay. So there isn't a standard way of putting a thick outline of the text. It all depends on the font. So again, you have to be able to see the openings in the letters. You can't fill them up or it won't look as good. So again, you're going to be adjusting the thickness of the outline depending on the font that you chose. Okay. But you do want a thicker black outline. And again, the fill color doesn't matter. I would just stick to gray. Okay, the next thing is this. Because we want the letters to be flowing, so the smoke should look like it's flowing from one letter to the next, we should actually bring the letters closer together. So I'm going to click here in my Berlin Sans. I'm going to go to my character spacing. Right now it's normal. And I'm going to bring them a little closer together, something like that. Now I don't want to do very tight because now I can't read the letters. So I'm going to go to tight and take a look at it. I can still read the letters, and that's very important. You have to be able to still read the letters. So when you use the character spacing, again, that depends on the font. Sometimes when you go tight, it makes the letters too close together depending on the font. So sometimes you just have to leave it on normal. But you do want to try, if you can, bring the character spacing in together, okay, so that the letters look more like they're flowing into each other. Now, we can do the same thing here. So if I click on the PressScript, go to my character spacing, I can see it's normal. I can go to tight. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think that looks better. And again, that depends on the font. Sometimes you can't do that. Now, the next thing I want to do is put a little slat to the letters. Because this is supposed to be smoke and it's supposed to be flowing, it would look a lot better if the letters were slanted. So I'm going to click here, go my Berlin, and I'm going to make that italic. Okay, that looks a lot better. So with your regular fonts, whether they're serif fonts or sans serif fonts, doesn't matter. You want to try to italicize them. Now again, italics may not work on certain fonts, especially when you take the character spacing in. So you'll have to watch that. Now if I go here and do the same thing, but you might think little too slanted, hard to read the letters. So in this one here, I'm just by take italic off. It's a little too slanted. So again, it depends on the font. So again, whether you want a serif font, a sans serif font, a script font, you want to try to do this. You want to give them a nice outline, and you don't want to lose the spaces. So you want to make the outline thicker, but not lose the spaces. And if you can, bring the character spacing in, and if you can, italicize it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, now in this example, I'm going to just use the Berlin Sans one. I'm going to get rid of the script font, and we're going to just use this one, just to show you that a regular font works just fine. So once again, it doesn't matter the color that we use, because one of the artistic effects we're going to use is going to make it into a grayscale, so the color is irrelevant. But we do need that black outline. Now the next thing you're going to notice, we have a nice large black rectangle, and this is going to be important. Our Smokey Text is going to have to be on a black background, and you'll see why as we build this with different artistic effects. So you do need a black background, and if you were to go online to find a nice smoky picture to put inside of text, you're going to notice that they're always on a black background. If you don't have the Smokey Text on a black background and you put on a light background, it's hardly noticeable. So you do need the black background. Because we're going to use artistic effects, I have to copy this text and paste it as a picture. So I'm going to copy it, paste it as a picture. Okay, now you notice the black outline doesn't show up there as it does on the lighter background. Okay, now we're going to apply our first artistic effects. So I'm going to go to my effects. I'm going to go to artistic effects. And I'm going to take the second one down. It's called chalk sketch. Now that makes it go into grayscale. So again, it doesn't matter what color you make this, it's going to go grayscale. So we get this kind of shading here. So I like that, but you can see at the edges here where the black outline is, it's starting to get a little rougher. So if I put it here, you can still see the black outline, but you can see it's starting to get a little bit rough. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, paste it as a picture. So we're applying effect on top of an effect. Okay, so I'm going to delete that one, go here. And I'm going to go back, apply the same effect. Okay, and now you can see the outline's getting rougher. Now again, on a light background, it's not as noticeable, but on a black background, it really stands out. So you can see our edges are starting to get a little rougher, and that's what we want. This is why you don't need to go and find a fancy font online that looks wispy or twisty, because we can actually do something similar just with the effects we're using right now. Okay, so I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to copy that, paste as a picture. Okay, get rid of that one, and I'll do it one more time. So go to my effects, put the chalk. Now you can see how rough we have it there. So it's starting to break up the outline. So this is starting to look a little more loose. Okay, now how many times you put this chalk effect on depends on how thick the font is. So you might have to do it more, you might have to do it less. But I think about that looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to copy and paste this using another effect. So I'm going to copy that, paste it as a picture. Get rid of that one. Okay, now I'm going to actually reverse this. So the white's going to go dark and the dark's going to go light. So to do that, I'm going to go here to my artistic effects, and we're going to go to this one, glow edges. So we get something like that. Now we don't want all these rough curly cues that you see here. So I'm going to go to my smoothness and drag it all the way to the right. So that smooths it out. Okay, now look at your outline. It's really starting to flow now. So it's not like this anymore. It really flows quite nicely. What I want to do next is darken this. So I'm going to go to my picture format. I'm going to go to my corrections, and I'm going to go to this last one here. So brightness -40, contrast +40. It makes it nice and dark like that. Okay, a very faint outline. Now I'm going to put this on the light part here, and you notice we still got this thick outline around there. Okay, and we don't want that. So we have to get rid of that thick outline. I just want up to the white outline you see here. To do that, we go to our soft edges and we spin up. So I'm going to spin it up, and you can see what's happening. We just want to the white outline, something like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, so you can see that the outline now looks more wispy, and it's exactly what we want. Okay, so what I have to do now is copy and paste as a new picture. Get rid of that. Now we start adding the actually smoke wispy filaments in there. To do that, we go to artistic effects and want to go to plastic wrap. Click that, and we get that. Now we're going to take the smoothness all the way over to the right. So it's 10. It looks pretty good. And we just do that a couple more times. So we copy, paste as a picture. It has to be a new image, so we can reapply the effect on the old effect. and we go back, do that again, and we drag it over just like that. It looks pretty good. Do that one more time. Now, how many times you add the plastic wrap, again, it's going to depend on how thick your font is, or how thin your font is, and how much of this wispy filaments you want in your smoke. So I don't want a whole bunch. I just want a nice wispy flowing filament in there. So maybe I'll try it one more time. Get rid of that one, and let's see what that looks like. And drag it over, and I think that's good enough. The only problem using plastic wrap, as you see here, is a plastic wrap tends to concentrate more in the middle rather than the edges. So I don't want to keep doing this so that all the text gets the same as this middle part, because that's too much. I want it to be a little bit loose on the edges like it is here. Okay, now if we take a look at that, that kind of looks like smoke filaments kind of rotating and undulating and flowing. And you can see that it's actually following the shape of the letters. Okay, I like that. So now I'm going to go to my color, and I'm going to make it a little more yellow. Maybe about there. Temperature about 8800. That looks pretty good. Right now we got some wispy smoke, but some of the smoke should be trailing off to the top. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hold my control and drag it down. Okay, so I'm going to take this one, and this is going to be the wispy smoke that trails to the top. To do that, I'm going to go to my corrections, and I'm going to make that really dark. So maybe the second from the end. And what I'm going to do is go to my soft edges and spin that up. And when I do that, you're not going to see much of the edges of this. It's going to look more like filaments. So if I spin it up, you see that it looks a little more like filaments. Now, if I drop that behind the text, like that, you can see it looks like filaments of smoke wisping off. And you can make that lighter, or maybe I want to make that darker. So it's up to you. You know, you just play around, see what you like. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'll just move it up a bit. Okay, now we have some wispy smoky elements on top. We should have some on the bottom. So I'm going to take this top one down, and I'm going to click on this and duplicate it. And it's going to be in the bottom. Okay, now I need to bring this to the top. So I'm going to right click, bring to front. And we're going to take that, put it there. And you can see we have some wispy elements to the bottom. I'm going to just move them up. Now what I want to make sure is that you can't really tell it's just a duplicated text. So I want to make them close to the edge so you can't really tell that. Of course you can move it left or right, whatever you like. So I just want to make it look like wispy text without it looking like it's just a duplicate. Well, now we have some wispy smoke coming down. We have some wispy smoke coming up. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top layer and I'm going to do a soft edges on it. When I do that, it's going to kind of blend into the background here. So it's going to blend into the top and bottom layer. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to spin this up a little bit, and you can see what's happening. We're doing the top layer. That's this layer right here. And when we do that, you can see that it's slowly starting to blend into the background. So the background is really getting integrated into that. Now I don't want to do it too much where I can't read the text like that. That looks really good. It really looks like wispy smoke, but I can't read the text. So I just want to bring it back enough that I can read the text, but really integrate the background and the foreground together. So you can still read it. It says smoky, and it really looks like it's flowing and wrapping. Now again, if you want to make it more readable, then you just take it down a bit. So it's up to you. And that looks pretty good. Now, because we're going to be adding a couple more images to this, I think what will help is if we kind of name everything so we know the stacking order. To do that, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to grab my selection pane, and I'm going to start naming these things. Okay, so this one here is the main one. It's picture 97 in this case, so I'm going to call it main. This one is the top one. So I think I'll just call that one top. This one is the bottom one, so I'll call that bottom. Okay, so now we can control these a little better. So now that you got them all named, you may find that it's a lot easier to select them through the panel here, because the top and the bottom are behind the main image and they're going to be hard to select. So if you need to select them, it's easier just to select them through the panel. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the main image, and what I want to do next is add a little darkness to the smoke. So to do that, I'm going to go to my picture format. I'm going to go to my corrections, and I'm going to move over to the left just one notch. So it's a little bit darker like that. I think that looks a little more smoky if it's a little bit darker like that. Okay, so let's take a look at that in the slideshow. So it really looks like wispy smoke, and it just seems to be flowing and undulating and moving as it should. And again, if you look at the letters, it's really wrapping around the letters, defining the letters. Now what I like to do is add some dark spots on top of this main image here. And when we do that, that'll give us the feeling of depth. Right now we have the smoke going up, we have the smoke going down, but if we add some dark spots, it'll give the illusion of smoke going in and out. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate the main image, and I'm going to call that one dark, because that'll be the dark one. And I'm going to go to my picture format, go to my corrections. I think I'll go real dark. Okay, now I'm going to put it on top and just kind of eyeball it, line it up. And what I'm going to do is take my soft edges up. So I'm going to spin this up really high. Okay, something like that. And I'll show you what that does. I'm going to go to my slideshow, and you can see having the darkness in here, like these dark spots here, it really makes the smoke look like not only is it flowing up and down, but it's actually going forward and backward, like it's really going three-dimensional. So that looks pretty good, I think. You can play with the soft edges, add more darkness, or take away the darkness as much as you want just by playing with the soft edges. The one thing I might want to do with the dark one is soften it a bit. So I'm going to go to my picture format. I'm going to go to my corrections, and I'm going to take this one here, softness 25%. Okay, now let's take a look at that. Okay, so now we got a little bit of softness there, and it really gets the idea of movement. So it kind of really looks like the smoke is really moving in and out. So I kind of like that. Now again, I like the softness. You may want to keep it sharp. It's up to you. Okay, now what I'd like to do is add a little bit of fire. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Now you may be happy with this and want to stop right there, but I'm going to show you several ways to add fire to this. So I'm going to take the top one, which is the dark one. I'm going to drag it down. I'm going to remove the soft edges like that. I'm going to go to my corrections. I'm going to put it to this one here, brightness -20, contrast +40. And what I'm going to do is now give it the color. So I'm going to go full color saturation and full color tone. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to put it on top. And I'm going to take the soft edges up quite a bit. Okay, so we have a little bit of fire. And again, how much fire you want is up to you. Okay, now this one has the softness to it. So I'm going to go to my corrections and just put it back to normal sharpen. So we have that. Okay, so let's take a look at that. And now we have some fire in with the smoke. So that looks pretty good. And again, it's up to you how much fire you want to put in there. You can put quite a bit or not as much. Now, one of the things you want to make sure is that everything is lining up. Now, the top and bottom filaments, they don't have to line up. You can move them left or right. It doesn't really matter. But the middle ones, you do want to line up. So like the fire image, I want it to be perfectly aligned so that all the filaments are lining up. Now, if you don't do that and you put them off center, then they get blurry. Now, there's two ways to do that. You can just eyeball it and just move them around. When they're right on top of each other, they'll be nice and sharp like this. But if you find that too hard to do, you can actually use the panel. So right now I've got the fire one selected. I'm going to hold my control and I'm going to click on the dark, and then I'm going to click on the main. Okay, so by holding the control, I can select multiple objects. So I've got all three of those selected. I can go to my format, go to my line, and I can align center and align middle. Okay, so that's another way to make sure you line them up. So the middle ones have to be lined up, where the top and bottom, you can always move them left or right. It really doesn't matter. Okay, now I've got some nice fire in the middle, but what about the bottom? What if I want fire to be at the bottom instead of the middle? So the fire is at the bottom of the text and the smoke is rising from it. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to take this fire, I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to remove the soft edges. And what I'm going to do is cut the top part off. So I'm going to go to my home, go to my scribble tool. I'm going to draw a nice jagged line. I don't want it to be straight. I want it to be jagged. So towards the bottom or like this, okay? And then we're going to circle on top because we don't need the top part. Now I'm going to click on my fire, hold my shift, click on my outline, go to my shape format, merge, and we're going to subtract that, okay? So now I'm going to line this up. You're going to have to eyeball this one. Just line it up and then go to your effects and take the soft edges up, kind of like that, okay? So now you have fire at the bottom and in the middle, okay? So let's take a look at that. Okay, so again, we have a lot of fire. So maybe you don't want the fire, like I say, in the middle, you just want it at the bottom. So let me show you how to do that. So let me duplicate this one. And let's get rid of the fire in the middle. And let's do a comparison. Okay, so here we have fire at the bottom in the middle, and here we have fire just at the bottom with the smoke rising from the fire. Okay, looks pretty good. Now, if you're going to use fire at the bottom, you probably want the bottom filaments to be a little more colorful because they're probably going to be reflecting the fire. So let's do that. So I'm going to click on the bottom. You can see I've got the bottom right there. And I'm going to go to my picture format, go to my color, and I'm going to go to color saturation. I don't want it to be exactly the same color as the fire. It should be a little lighter, maybe something like that. I'm going to click here and let's take a look. And now we got smoky filaments. They're kind of like the fire. Now I think they're a little too strong. So what I'm going to do is raise the effect here, soft edges. I'm going to click them up a bit. I'm going to raise it up a bit. And so they're not as strong. So just a wispy little bit at the bottom there. I think it looks pretty good. Okay, so now we got fire at the bottom. We have fire at the bottom in the middle. And how about just the smoke? So let's do a comparison to all three. Okay, so I'm going to take this, raise it up. I'm going to take this, move it out of the way. And let's duplicate this one and just bring it up. So let's get rid of the fire here. I'm going to click on that one, delete that, get rid of that one. That looks pretty good. Okay, now let's take a look at it again in the slideshow. So there it is. We just have the smoky text. We have smoky text with bottom and middle fire, and we have smoky text with just fire at the bottom. Now there's still a lot of options you can do here. So for example, if I'm going to use the smoky text by itself, I'm going to click on the main, and I might want to go to my picture format, go to color, and maybe make it a little bit brighter like this. A little more in the brown rather than gray. So you have a lot of options. And let's see, maybe just take it down a bit. So it's a little bit yellower, but not as gray. So let's take a look at that. I think that looks a little nicer than just having the gray smoke. So I think that looks pretty good. You can do things like you can make the top and bottom filaments, you can make them softer. So if I click on the top filament and I go to my corrections, I can make that softer if I want. I can do the same with the bottom. If I click on the bottom and go to my corrections, make that softer. So it tends to look like it's fading away. So you can see that they're a little softer. They tend to look like they're fading away. So again, there's a lot of variations that you can do to this. Again, just about any font in your system will work. And you don't need to go online. You don't need to find a fancy flame looking font or a smoky looking font. Just about any font in your system will work. So the steps I've shown you, you're going to have to vary for the font that you chose. But anyways, I think that looks very natural. I think that looks very realistic. The smoke really looks like it's following the shape of the letters, and it was pretty easy to do. Okay, so anyways, that's how you do smoky font in PowerPoint. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a like. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. We'll try to get back to you. And if you just like to leave comments about this, we appreciate that. We like to read the comments. So again, thanks for watching, and we hope to catch you on the next video.